Welcome to Football Friday. We're one day away from UConn's season opener. How will the Huskies fare against Maryland? You're locked on UConn.
You are Locked On UConn, your daily podcast on the UConn Huskies. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On UConn your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Before we dive into today's show, just want to take a moment to ask you for a quick favor. If you're enjoying the content here, please take a second to subscribe to the show. Follow the audio versions wherever you get your podcasts. It really helps the show grow, and I can't tell you how much I appreciate your support. It means the world to me, and it keeps us going strong every day. Thanks so much for being part of this Locked On UConn community. Today's episode is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. It fixes tired fast. With zero sugar and a convenient portable size, it's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is only valid until September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Well, let's bring in our co-hosts for Football Friday. Just like last week, we bring in Bobby Wilson and Pete Callan from the TNT College Football Podcast. They are resident college football experts in the UConn universe. Pete is a UConn DB alum. Love to have you guys and happy to have you guys back. First question out of the gates. I think what most people have on their mind when it comes to this opening matchup is, what are we going to expect out of this UConn team? A lot of new faces. I'm going to go to Pete first. What can we expect from this UConn team offensively and defensively? Just one thing that everyone is going to be keyed in on.
I think the one thing that everybody's going to be keyed on, quite simply, is how these players operate with one another. You know, what do they do to do the basic operations of offense and defense to make it work together, work at a level intense enough to compete and win the game. Really basic stuff. I mean, and in terms of, players, which players will shine, basically who's gonna shine out, who's going to be that alpha dog that's going to take things on their shoulders and do their part to try to do their job so well they start taking over the game if they have that capability. So that's what I think people are going to be looking for this first game.
What about you, Pete? This is a big one for them. There's not a ton of Power 5 or Power 4 games on the schedule. This is an opportunity for them against a Maryland team that was 8-5 last year. I think they were in the middle of the pack in the Big Ten, but it's a good team. What can we expect?
Well, I think that this, personally, my opinion, I think this is the hardest game on our schedule. This is a talented Maryland team with Billy Edwards at quarterback, mixing in MJ Morris, the NC State transfer. Both have really good run-pass option. Billy throws a really good deep ball. They got some really talented receivers that can go get it. And then defensively, they got a really stout front seven. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how we how, like Pete and I always talk about, the operations aspect, and it's something we're really big on, how we operate with our new offensive system and our new defensive system against a high-quality opponent.
Do you think, as open-ended, either you can go first, do you think that the new signal calling where now there's a headset is going to help with some of those operations? I know they've gone away from, probably in part because of the sign stealing scandal with Michigan, where everyone's kind of got their signs up, but now you can actually talk to the quarterback during, just like the NFL does. Do you think that's going to help with some of the communication, at least initially?
I think definitely, especially with newer players, younger players, players that are coming in despite their experience, learning new terminology. Position coaches relaying to the offensive coordinator relaying particularly to the quarterback, just certain tendencies the defense might be showing that he may not be able to see under center, that people can see up top from the press box or from the sideline. So I think it'll definitely be helpful from an offensive standpoint And even in the defense standpoint as well, with the signal callers on the defense, with the safeties and the linebackers getting the defense lined up in accordance to whatever formations they may face, getting them in the right position to make plays and helping them out as well.
What about you, Bobby? What do you think about that?
I agree. Looking at it from the quarterback perspective, from my time as back in my days, and just thinking about like having somebody in your ear to help and guide you through some of those different things. I think it's a really, really important aspect to have those coaches be able to be like, hey, we see this. How about you look at this? Just a different perspective, seeing different from different vantage points. I think that's big from an offensive perspective. And like Pete said, I agree. Defensively, I think it helps as well, just from communicating. We had some breakdowns last year in our defense, and I'm really intrigued to see how that translates this season.
Yeah, I'm curious also. And correct, I don't know the answer to this question, so you guys can answer it for me. I know, again, at the NFL level, the Mike linebacker typically has the headset. Is that also happening in college level where the defense can be relayed electronically, or is it just for the quarterback?
Good question. I assume that it was for both positions, for both units. I think if you didn't have it for both units, it would give an extreme advantage to the offense for them to be wired and the defense not be wired. So I'm assuming that the linebackers, or at least one positional player on defense, has communication and access to a coach as well as the quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it could be a different player at the college level if you trust your strong safety to call plays and relay that to the linebackers, and who relay that to the defensive line. That could be the way it goes. But yeah, I think you're right. I think it would be silly for them to institute this rule and then only have it for one side of the ball. But so maybe not that great of a question, but I really don't know the answer to it. So maybe we'll find that out.
No,
what you got from that, Bobby?
Yeah, it is a thing for the defense as well. They're able to choose which player they want it to be. So just the way to look for it is just look for the green dot on the back of their helmet. Yep. Whoever it may be, I don't know who it will be, but yes, it will be there.
Real quick, back to Pete. Defensively, what worries me is new linebackers and the secondary, especially with this Maryland offense that does have a good deep ball thrower in Billy Edwards Jr. And quite a few receivers that can take the top off the defense. What do you expect from them in terms of the type of coverages? Do you like? I feel like I always kind of go back to: do you want to have an aggressive defense that can get burned, and then you kind of take some chances to maybe make the quarterback rush, or do you kind of have that bend but don't break defense? Like what's the philosophy with UConn in this 3-3-5?
I think number one thing they're going to look for is stopping the run. As Bobby alluded to earlier, Maryland has historically been a very good running team. Mike Loxley's offenses in particular feature the run, and particularly with dual threat quarterbacks, incorporating the RPOs off of that. So their first priority is going to be stopping the run. And then from that, how many people is it going to take to stop the run? Are they going to be able to stay in 3-man fronts? Do they have to walk up a 4th man or a 5th man to stop it? And consequently, how's the offense going to adapt to that in terms of, going off of play action passes and exploiting those weaknesses and those bubbles in the defense. So it's going to be that chess game that the defense is going to have to play. And then, in obvious passing situations, what kind of, lines, what kind of line numbers can they get away with rushing the quarterback? Is it going to be 4? Is it going to be 5? Did they have to bring 6? So it's going to be that kind of feel that they're going to have to get over the course of the game to see how their matchups are on defense and see, what they can do to attack Maryland.
What about you, Bobby? What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with Pete that our first line of defense will be stopping the run, just based off of how we played in the past. But then at the same time, I think that's where we're very strong is on the defensive line. And I think our linebackers, I know Pete and I have talked about this on my show about how originally we didn't think it was as deep as as we thought, but when you look at it a little bit deeper, we got some really talented guys there, and I'm really, really excited to see how that group handles things.
Who's a name to watch in the line? Who's a name to watch in the linebacking core?
Tui Famina Brown. He just recently got nominated for the Polynesian Award. He's on the watch list. I expect him to have that green dot, being the guy communicating defensively. That would just be my guess. Okay. And I know some of the guys that I've talked to have really talked him up and just saying how great he's been playing.
It's fantastic. Well, we're going to get into I appreciate that overview, guys. We're going to talk about the Maryland Terrapins and what they bring to the table coming up after this. Hey, everyone. With a new baby on the way, I'm trying to minimize meal prep and still eat healthy and nutritious meals. That's why I'm loving Factor's no prep, no mess meals. They're fresh. They're never frozen. Ready to eat in just 2 minutes. Perfect for my busy schedule, whether I'm looking to stay on track with Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, or keto options. For me, it's keto. Factor has me covered. Plus, with 35 different meals and over 60 add-ons each week, I'm always exploring new flavors. Ready to kickstart your healthy routine? Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use LockedOnCollege50 for 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. Trust me, you won't regret it. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find something you're looking for with eBay Guaranteed Fit. Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back, because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit. Only available with U.S.-based customers. Okay, we're back on Locked On UConn with Bobby Wilson and Pete Callen of the TNT podcast, college football podcast. Wanted to bring up, we went over a kind of the overview of what to expect for UConn, a little bit of what, some names to watch offensively and defensively. If you're watching this game on Saturday and you're psyched about UConn football, who's our opponent? We said we know it's Maryland. We know they're a Big Ten opponent. We know they're pretty talented. What can we expect from them? Bobby, I'm going to start with you first. Just give me like a quick overview of their style of play, and maybe some guys that we can kind of keep our eyes on that are going to be tough to stop.
Offensively, they got some really talented athletes. Running back Roman Hemby is all Big Ten caliber back. Running, catching, he can do a little bit of everything. Billy Edwards at quarterback, he's a really good run pass threat. Performed well in their bowl game. And then I've heard that they're going to mix in MJ Morris, the transfer from NC State as well. Kind of provides the same type of thing. Just might not know the playbook as well, just because he's just been brought in there. They have some really, really talented wide receivers. Caden Prather, he's 6'3". He's an NFL prospect. There's going to be lots of eyes on him. He's a really, really talented player. And then Ty Felton is another really talented guy. They have some good tight ends as well. This is a talented offense that's going to look to spread it out, get it in space, use their speed, but then also they've been known to take deep shots. It'll be interesting to see now that Talua Tagovailoa is no longer there. Obviously, he took a lot of deep shots, so it'll be interesting to see if they continue to implement that moving forward.
Pete, when you're thinking about this, think about it from a DB perspective. They have a lot of guys on the other side, wide receivers that Bobby just mentioned, that are, last year they were doing a lot of deep balls. Do you go into this looking at some of the film from last year and kind of getting tendencies? Or do you kind of go into this almost like fresh slate where we don't really know and we have to just trust our keys and react? Like what's your mindset going into this game?
I think me being the wiser now than I was back when I was a player, I think the one thing you always look at is who's calling the plays. And they have a very creative mindset on that offensive staff. And Ken Sumlin, the former head coach at Texas A&M, is on that staff as an assistant head coach. So, in terms of the creativity, the one thing that stood out to me, particularly watching film from last year, was the bowl game and how they just totally dismantled Auburn during that bowl game. How creative they were with different screen packages to get their star players the ball, particularly the running back. How they took shots and attacked with their receivers against an SEC caliber, secondary, and they just totally rolled the floor with Auburn, totally dominated the game. So a lot of those players, young players, got experience in that bowl game last year. A lot of them are going to have roles to play in this offense. So it's going to be a challenge for our defense, particularly switching to a new system. We got to make sure that, as a unit, we take care of our own business, again, make sure our operations are sound, and elevate the level of play from there.
Okay. Maryland's defense. Talk to me. What do they play like an aggressive front? Are they more of a 3-4 defense? Are they doing something 3-3-5 like us, or are they traditional 4-3? Bobby, break down to your best knowledge your kind of defensive preview on Maryland.
They can mix it up between 3-4 and 4-3 with their personnel. They're the two main guys on their defensive line. They got two 320-pound tackle nose guard combo guys, and Tommy Nkambasate and then Jordan Phillips. These two guys are really talented players, and all Big Ten level players. I mean, these guys can both play on Sunday. I think initially it's going to be hard for us to run up the middle against those guys. Something Pete and I have talked about is speeding them up, trying to get them tired, trying to get them to sub as much as we can, and then being able to hit them quickly with some gash plays. But those two in particular defensive linemen are really, really talented. They got a good linebacker, Reuben Highlight. I'm sorry. He's a captain, multi-year starter. He's just always around the football. Those are three guys in particular I would look at. Their secondary, they do have some new faces, so we might be able to exploit some of those matchups potentially. I love our new options at receiver. I think we're going to be able to get guys in space and really make some noise in that regard.
Before I ask Pete about one more aspect of Maryland, I just have to let everyone know, as you guys know, college football is back, and it's not too late to catch up before the season kicks off. SEC, ACC, Big 10, Big 12. You can get it all here from Locked On stable of college experts by subscribing to Locked On College Football Podcast. Who has a chance to make the college football playoff? What teams will cause chaos in their new conference? Everything you need to know all in one place. Be sure to follow and subscribe to the Locked On College Football Podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Pete, talk to me about our ability to get after this quarterback. Whoever it is, whether it's Billy Edwards, or if they bring in, I forget his name, Bobby, the NC State transfer, if they kind of mix it up. Bottom line is, you put pressure on a quarterback, sometimes they wilt. What kind of pressure can we create here, or can we? How's Maryland's offensive line compared to what we can potentially do to disrupt what they like to do?
Well, they have a bunch of new starters on offensive line. I think we pointed out on previous shows that they had four new starters on offense. So
yeah,
that could be exploited if we put them in those pass situations. Again, as we said before, our main focus and our main mission is going to be stopping the run, and all the plays that proceed off of that, particularly run pass options. We definitely have the experience in the secondary to kind of enforce our influence on that in stopping those plays. And I think if we get them in pressure situations, I kind of like our our situation in terms of the 3-3-5, because then that's when we can stem in different fronts, different numbers in the box. If we scouted them well enough to know what kind of adjustments they make to protections, based on, where the numbers lie on one side of the ball or the other, that's when we can really exploit them and exploit possibly their inability to communicate with each other effectively and get one or two people to sneak in and get some hits on the quarterback.
If we do all of that, let's say we do stop the run, because you guys did mention that. So let's say that's happened and we're doing a good job of stopping the run here. Does the defense kind of play some games as kind of in that regard, where in a 3-3-5, is it similar to like when, you watch some of these exotic defenses where it's kind of like an amoeba where you don't necessarily know who's coming, who's not, who's dropping? Is it going to be more zone blitz from that perspective? Bobby, why don't you give me your answer on that?
I think that's where it can get really fun for us, because we can play that game where they're not knowing where our guys are coming from. And especially being the first game, I mean, they're not going to have film and all that on it, obviously, to know our tendencies and whatnot. But if we're able to do the things that Pete and I think we can do when it comes to stopping the run, it's going to put us in a really good spot, because then we have an advantage then at that point. Because like Pete said, I like our back end, our those guys back there. We have guys with a lot of experience back there that can make some plays. But then we have a really good mixture of guys that we can throw in on the defensive line that can do different things. And then we have some really talented, albeit a lot of them we haven't seen much of from the linebacker position, but we got some really good talent there.
Okay. Pete, anything to add there?
No, I really like our chances if we get them in passing situations. I don't think either quarterback will be comfortable staying in the pocket, trying to deliver passes if we get them in that situation. It's, like I said, Loxley likes to put pressure on the defense, by making them play 11 on 11. And if we can make them one-dimensional and make that quarterback have to sit back in the pocket and start delivering the ball, I like our chances.
Last question on this, Pete. I'm gonna come back to you. Do you think, and this is just your guess, because like Bobby said, we don't have film, we don't have tendencies. If we do all these good things, I may not be a college football expert, but what I do know about football is sometimes you can do all the right things, especially at the college level, and that quarterback sneaks out and is hurting you with his legs. With either one of these quarterbacks, because they do run an RPO, are we going to have to spy? Are we going to have some discipline to stay in our lanes and not rush upfield too much, or give him ability to kind of, or in other words, contain him with our rush? So not just go with your hair on fire, because no disrespect, because he's the greatest quarterback of all time, but a Tom Brady who's not mobile. But you don't see Lamar Jackson get hit clean because he can escape. So does that make sense? Like, are we going to have to do some of that? Do you think they're going to have to play games where they leave like a hybrid linebacker safety and kind of spy, or can we play straight up with these guys?
The first thing we want to try to do, because of the types of players we brought in, is to try to play straight up with them, try to rush forward, have them be disciplined in their rush lanes and keep them contained in the pocket. If they do escape, hopefully they'll escape upfield away from the line of scrimmage enough to, to bubble back and, give the rest of the defenders a chance to adjust with their play and with their responsibilities. So, yeah, it's definitely going to be, basically be disciplined, take the straightest line possible, try to use the lineman in front of you to, create extra pressure on that quarterback and make him feel condensed space, and try to influence tempo and momentum that way.
Okay. All right. I like it. I think we have a pretty good idea of what to expect. When we come back, I'm going to ask probably like one or two key matchups and get some predictions. And yes, we will talk about the betting line and best bets for this game. And if you're feeling frisky, what the money line is for UConn win. Coming up after this. Ever hit that afternoon slump and just can't seem to push through? Trust me, I've been there. In fact, I've been called the yawning podcaster before, so I definitely need 5-hour energy sometimes. It's my go-to for tackling the endless to-do list or powering through a workout when motivation's low. And when I'm catching the big game or staying up late, hell, doing a podcast, it keeps me alert and in the zone. Plus, with zero sugar and flavors like watermelon and tropical burst, there's something for everyone. Head over to their website whenever you can customize your own 12 or 24 pack. So what are you waiting for? Try 5 Hour Energy today. Hey, UConn fans, if you want to show off your Husky pride and style, check it out. We're talking about Home Field Apparel. They've got the most comfortable vintage style inspired gear, perfect for any true UConn supporter. And here's the best part. You can get 15% off your first order with the promo code UConn24. Just head over to homefieldapparel.com and use the code UConn24 at checkout. I got a back to football box. They wrapped it perfectly. It was beautiful. I got this sweatshirt, a long sleeve, and I believe that koozie that's up there, they hook you up. And if you got another fan in the house or someone who went to a different school, no worries. Home Field has over 180 schools to choose from, so there's something for everyone. Don't miss out on upgrading your game day wardrobe. Okay, we're back with the guys from the TNT podcast, Bobby Wilson, Pete Callen. All right, guys, last segment before we watch some football and see how our Huskies do here. What are some key matchups? Bobby, you go first. I want to give you I'm basically just going to give you names against the other's offense or defense. I think that's kind of the biggest thing, because like the first thing for me is Nick Evers in his offensive line, because a quarterback can't do it by himself, against Maryland's defense. What's the key matchup there in respect to what can we expect from the former 4-star Oklahoma QB via Wisconsin transfer? Let us know what to expect with Nick against this Maryland defense.
I think Nick is going to look to try to get it to our receivers in space. I'm thinking we're going to utilize the RPO more. We'll see, because he has that ability. He's very quick, good on his feet. I think it's going to keep Maryland on their toes in that regard. From our offensive line perspective, our tackles are both professional prospects in Valentin Sen and Chase Lunt. Mm-hmm. Chase Lunt is absolutely on NFL draft radars. And then our interior offensive line against particularly those two interior defensive linemen I mentioned earlier, I think is a really important thing to watch in this game. Pete and I are both big on games are won in the trenches, and sure. I firmly believe that this game will be that way.
What about you, Pete? When you look at this game, and it's Nick Evers' first start at UConn, what do you want to see from him? Forget about the matchup. What do you want to see from him? Like that you were like, all right, he's settled down. Like the start of the game has happened. You know, Maryland fans are hooting and hollering. It's a packed house. Although, didn't their coach say that they're like imploring fans to come to the game? So maybe it won't be a packed house, but it'll be a lot of people there. And if anyone sees Mike Martinez, my uncle out there, he's about a 72-year-old guy. He's going to be tailgating. He's a former board of directors at UConn, so he'll be at that game. If I didn't have a pregnant wife, I'd be with him. So say hi to him for me. But if in this game, it's a lot of pressure. It's his first UConn start. If you see him do what, you're going to be like, oh, he's going to be fine.
Just keep his composure, not try to press and make plays beyond what his role is. And just try to let his natural talent kind of synthesize with the play calling with the offense. I think if he starts to do that, naturally he'll start to gain a rhythm more and start to make plays on his own. And you'll start to see other components of the offense, other players on the offense, probably join that momentum along with him and start making plays. I think the biggest thing with him is just keeping his composure, taking care of the football operationally in his role, and delivering the passes he needs to move the chains, make plays when he has to. I think if he starts making throws that he's supposed to make, I'll be happy. If he starts making throws that you're like, wow, that was a tight window, and he still completed it, and we're moving the ball because of that, I'll be like really encouraged. So those are the things I'll be looking at, in terms of his play and judging whether or not things are going well.
Bobby, let me ask you this, and Pete, you can give me your opinion on this as well. as far as the tempo of this game, are they going to give what's UConn's offensive philosophy? I know the defensive philosophy is stop the run first so we can get into passing situations and kind of play some games from that side of the ball. Offensively, are they going to try to get him comfortable with easy completions or kind of be more conservative and give a lot of RPO run, potentially get him some quarterback run so he kind of gets hit a little bit, so he kind of is like, oh, I'm involved in the game now? Like, what are they going to try to do? Like, I know some coaches' philosophy is first shot of the game, best time to do it, play action, you throw a bomb. Like, what's the philosophy here that we can potentially look for?
I think initially that will be how we look to do things, just to get him in a rhythm. I think that's going to be really
conservative initially.
Yes, yeah, I think so initially. I think as the game goes on, we'll open it up and do more things. I just think to get him personally, my opinion, to get him the confidence that he needs.
Pete, I don't love that. And not because I don't want Nick to be comfortable and not to get a couple completions, but there's something about going into someone's arena and being like, and saying, you know what, we don't even care. We don't care who you are. We don't care if you're from the Big Ten, SEC, whatever. The first play of the game, we're going up top, and if it gets picked off, it's like a punt. That would be my philosophy. I know you want to get these guys in the flow, in the rhythm, but it kind of sends a message that you just don't care, and that you care but you don't care. It's like we're having some fun. We're trying to get these guys some confidence. What are your thoughts on that? What would your philosophy be in this situation?
My philosophy is if you want to protect your quarterback, the best protection is to run the football, and utilize the reputation that you have running the football to set up play action passes. The differences between this UConn team and UConn teams in previous years is that in the receiving core now, we have people now that can take routes over the top of the defense. And we possibly have quarterbacks also that can deliver those balls over those safeties. So I will say this, even though we're going to try to protect them with the running game, if they see one of our burners get past those safeties, believe you me, they're going to take their shots and loosen that defense up, because it's going to take the extra safeties out of the box and open up the run game more, and it's just going to create more opportunities to score. And like you said, build that momentum. I would just, maybe think that they'll take their time a little bit more to see what their matchups are, because, we're still learning about our team, particularly in game situations, as much as anybody else. So,
yeah, I mean, listen, I'm a diehard Giants fan for the last 30, 40 years. So I understand 3 yards in a pile of dust more than probably anybody in that regard. That's always been the Giants' philosophy, right? Run the ball, play good defense. So I get it. But I also feel like when you watch college football and some of the successful teams, they're inside the numbers, the trenches, like you said, is great, but they also have that option to say, we're going to pop it over the top. So I hope that that's part of the offensive scheme, and I look forward to it. Bobby, back to you. We're going to ask one more question on this. What do you feel if talk to UConn fans only on this? If you're watching this game and just say it's like close to halftime, what's the score that you would be like, man, they have an actual shot to kind of stay in this thing for 60 minutes and potentially steal a game?
I think that we will be at that point, especially early. I really, really firmly believe that. I think that it'll be a touchdown game, let's just say, going into halftime. And obviously, if we're at that point, we feel really, really good about that. And I firmly believe that will be the case.
Pete, same question, but I'm going to ask it a different way. As far as tempo goes, if we're doing all the things that you guys say, running the ball, protecting the quarterback, taking our shots, but it's a low-scoring game, do you feel good about that because Maryland can be a high-powered offense? Is that where you think we need to be, or do you want to kind of get into a mini shootout? Like I don't think we want to do that, but I'm curious what your thoughts are.
I wouldn't mind a low-scoring first half at all. That would signal to me, defensively especially, that we're matching up very well against, like you said, a very potent offensive system and offense in Maryland. So again, I go back to that bowl game and how impressive they were against Auburn. If we hold them to single digits or, low double digits and we're pretty close, I would say I would definitely be happy with that result.
All right, guys. I'm going to go to you first, Bobby. What's your prediction for Saturday's game?
We're definitely going to cover the spread. That's without a doubt.
Jumping the gun here, man. I didn't even ask about the point spread. What's your prediction?
No, I just firmly believe that we have improved significantly on every aspect of this team. And I firmly believe that we're going to go out there and we are going to compete with this Maryland team and hang with them. My prediction is that we're right there with them till the end. Does it balloon maybe in the fourth quarter to maybe a double-digit loss? I could potentially see that. But at the same time, I am a firm believer that we are going to be there right until the end of this game.
You heard it here first on Locked On UConn. Bobby said hammer the spread. Make sure you're betting your savings, your 401k on minus 20.5. Pete, what's your prediction? Are you going to be as aggressive? I'm curious.
I'm probably going to be a moment by moment kind of observer of this game. As a former player and even more involved as a coach, the matchups I look at are the minds going against each other. I'm particularly interested in looking at how Matt Brock is going to match chess moves with Josh Gaddis, their offensive coordinator. Josh Gaddis is a former Broyles Award winner. For everybody that knows, that's the top assistant in the nation. And he did so at Michigan at a time when we played Michigan 2 years ago. He was the offensive coordinator. So I'm very interested to see that matchup and that chess match between those two minds and how they get their players in position to play one another. And I think, honestly, that's going to dictate the game. So whoever has the better play calls and the better horses that perform is going to win the game.
All right. So what's your prediction? Yeah.
My prediction. Let's go on a limb. UConn 34, Maryland 33.
Ooh, baby. All right. Well, listen, I'm going to tell you guys this. UConn is plus 950. So I'm not telling you guys to spend thousands of dollars betting on this, but $100 bet wins what? Almost $1,000. So it's not a bad play. So I, bet with caution with the money line. I also believe, like Bobby, that we're going to hang with Maryland and potentially lose a close game. But I am going to be rooting hard and may throw a few shekels on plus 950 just because it's more fun. But before we go, you guys obviously know that our show, along with Locked On Big 12, kind of broke the initial story of UConn being in talks with the Big 12. And what it's all about is what we talk about every week. It's about football. It's about getting a seat at the table for when revenue sharing comes down the pike, for when, Ross Dellinger talked about this the other day. There's always going to be something else that's going to require more money and more investment. If that's pay for play with players, it could be something along the lines of, now people are not naming NIL is gone. And now these guys are actual employees and they have union and collective bargaining. Where would UConn be without getting into a Power 3 or Power 4 conference? So everyone knows my opinion. I feel like we should go. I want to hear from you guys. Give me a Cliff Notes version of what your thoughts are, because I know we're about to end the show. And we didn't do it off the top because I wanted the focus to be about the game tomorrow. But I would love to hear your thoughts on UConn to the Big 12. Bobby, you go first.
It's like you said, it's a money game. And you need to go where that Power 3, Power 4 money is. Big 12 provides us that opportunity. We need to pursue it in every aspect, in every way that we can get. A year and a half ago, I had a source as well that told me UConn was in talks with the Big 12, pursuing that option. So I think they have to do it. If it's presented, they got to do it.
Pete?
I hear a lot of talk from UConn fans about protecting nostalgia, protecting image, protecting legacy. The one thing I'll say very fairly, very strongly, and hopefully not offensively, is that that legacy is going to be gone. You're going to be priced out if you don't make those moves, because it's going to be like Nebraska football. You're going to have those memories, but, times are going to move on and other programs are going to take your place. And you can, go to your grave happy, dying, the memory of 6 championships, but I don't think that's fair to future generations that may want and like the current prestige of UConn athletics, how it's rising, and would like something more, even if it's just focused on the basketball, programs, because like it or not, you need those monies. You need that money from the football operations to pay the current coach and future coaches to, field your team, recruit your players, and build those championship teams in the future. And I would say this also: it's not fair to blame football for this current dynamic. It's the TV executives that are using this model that they feel to gain money. It's not a slap in the face at UConn. It's not the football players slapping the face of UConn basketball. It's the TV executives that are using this financial model to gain money. I, as a football player, don't like it. I like the old school way of doing things, student athletes. But then again, they've earned their right to exploit the value they have on the field. And this is the way that it's going to get done. And if you feel that you are a big time player in athletics, you have to play this game, period.
Amen. We're going to end on that. I really appreciate you guys coming on. I didn't give my score prediction, so I'm going to do it now. That way we end on a positive. Should I roll the dice with Pete, or should I go more on the Bobby? I'm going to go in between you guys. I think UConn is going to play a very tough game. It's going to come down to it, but I think Maryland is going to win. I think they're going to not backdoor cover. If they really kind of want to, this should be about a 10-point spread, 10.5, in my opinion. So I think this is a Maryland 7 to 10 point win. And I think they push it, like Bobby said, to maybe like they kick a field goal late to give them a 9 or 10 point lead. But I think they're in this right to the end because I feel like they control tempo. I think Nick Evers gives them a good opportunity to extend plays when plays break down. And I'm excited, guys. I'm excited to start this season with you guys and really kind of follow UConn football like I never have before. So appreciate you both. This has been another episode of Locked On UConn. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, for Bobby Wilson and Pete Callan of TNT College Football Podcast. We're asking you to stay locked in, stay connected, make sure your toughness meter is always rising. And as always, go Huskies.